What's up everybody, it's Paul from Boosted Films, and in this video we're going to change the engine air filters on this 2019 Aston Martin Vantage, and special thanks to JXB Performance for letting us use their vehicle. So we're going to start by opening up our passenger side door, and this is of course a left-hand drive car, so it is a bit odd that the hood latch would be on the right side. But oddly enough, the owner of this car tells me if this was a right-hand drive car, the hood latch would actually be on the left side. So it's kind of opposite of what most people would expect. But of course, once you get down there, you should be able to see that hood latch and pull it to release your hood. And next, to open up our hood, we're going to slide our hand in just above that symbol in the front bumper. And we should be able to find that lever and slide it a little bit to the left. And that'll release that safety latch so you can open your hood all the way. And just one other thing worth pointing out is there are kind of two rubber stoppers here on either side of that hood latch release. Be mindful of those when you're sticking your hand in there trying to release the hood. Apparently those can fall out pretty easily and then be lost just as easily. So here we are under our hood, and you can see both air boxes with the tubes then feeding the air into the engine. What we basically need to do here is just remove these air boxes and then split them open to change the air filters inside. I will say the one on the right side that we're doing here first was a little bit trickier than the one on the left side of the screen, as it had a bit more hoses and things attached to it that you had to remove to actually completely lift out this air box. But first thing you can see we're doing here is just removing these two bolts that are pretty easy to get to. We'll take these two bolts out first. Next, we're going to give you a little better shot from kind of the back side of this airbox. There's some hoses that clip on here that should be able to just kind of pull off. Same with the right side. There are a few hoses on the right side of the airbox here. We're going to get those hoses off as well before we try to lift out this airbox. So of course we also need to disconnect this plug-in for this mass airflow sensor. And this is kind of a two-step one where you kind of just pull it back a little bit and then squeeze it also to pull it off. I'm going to show you how I did it on the other side as well right away, just so I can give you a better shot of that. So here you can see I just used a screwdriver just to pull it back a little bit to free it. And then I just squeezed it a bit with my hand, and then I was able to pull it off. Just make sure you got that one little plastic part released before you try to pull it out. And next, we just need a screwdriver to remove this clamp that holds this tube in place that funnels the air from my airbox into the engine. So you should be able to loosen that up and then pull that hose off. And now you should be able to actually pop out this whole airbox. You have to apply a little bit of force to pull it up and come out. And it looks like we had another hose that was still connected on this one as well that we had to make sure we get free before we lift out the airbox all the way. But here you can see a nice shot of what this airbox looks like. Now, this airbox is already split, but I just want to show you where all these bolts go. There are 6 bolts holding this together, so you need to remove all 6 of these bolts to separate this into 2 pieces to get your air filter out. So of course I'm going to speed up this process so you don't have to watch me do this one by one. I also wasn't sure how to do this job initially, so I took 2 of them out initially with the airbox still in the car, not knowing I had to take the whole airbox out itself. So you won't see me take all 6 out of this one, you'll just see me take out the 4. But of course, since you have to take out the airbox anyway, I recommend taking out the airbox first before removing any of these bolts holding it in place. And once you have all those bolts out, the airbox should split into 2. It does slide in a little bit in a couple of spots that you can't currently see, so you kind of got to slide them out. Now you can see those spots that are protruding a little bit, so we're going to pull that out, and now you can see our air filter. If there is any large debris in there, of course, go ahead and clean it out. You can clean out anything that is in there right away, get it taken out. And then we're going to compare our new to our old. In this particular car, we're putting in some K&N filters that should work okay. Or you will see that these are a lot thinner than the OEM ones in this case. You can put in whatever air filters you want, of course. These ones seem to be working just fine. Again, they're just a bit thinner than the OEM ones. Otherwise, they're about the same dimension. I think some of the black part of this K&N filter was a little bit thicker too, so it was a little bit... you had to squeeze a little bit more to hold the 2 pieces together, but you know, it's just a filter. As long as it's kind of holding together in there like it should in filtering the air, that's what we're concerned about. So we're going to stick this filter in place here in kind of this back part of this cover. And then we're going to take this bottom part and set it on top and line it up and then get our screws started. But before you do get those started too, then we're going to check this top piece here. Like I mentioned, they kind of slide in place. So make sure you get this top piece kind of slid in place. That should help line up all those holes for you. And there you go. Now you should be able to start tightening these up. I wouldn't tighten them up completely all the way. I like to always kind of make sure they're all started before you tighten one all the way. It's just a good practice. So again, 6 screws, 6 bolts, you should be able to get started. And then once they're all kind of started, you should be able to tighten them all up. So here we go. Now we can put our airbox back in place. Note the 2 little black rubber spots here. There's also 2 protruding spots on this airbox. So those protruding points kind of stick in to where those rubber pieces are. So there you go. You saw I just pointed those out. I'm going to also put this hose back on first. You should be able to do that if you want. Get that hose on so it's not in the way. Either one should work, but you want it lined up pretty well before you do try to push this in place. It will take a little bit of force to push it down in place, but you should kind of feel it snap in. Of course, also be mindful and watch for those hoses that you took off. You don't want to pinch those hoses anywhere that they shouldn't be. So watch for those hoses as well when you push it down. But there you can see we just pushed that other larger air intake hose back on, the round piece back on, and then we plugged in our sensor already. And now we're reconnecting some of those lines that were just kind of connected to the side of the box and that front or back part of the box, I should say. Next, of course, we got to tighten up that clamp. You should be able to turn it a little bit. I did find one of these clamps was a bit hard to get to initially, but once I got it off, I gave it a little turn so it was more accessible in the position that I tightened it up. So you should be able to move these in a spot where you can get at them pretty easily when you go to retighten them. But of course, just tighten that down and make sure you plug in that sensor that you unplugged. And now all we really need to do for this one on the side is put these 2 bolts back in place. So those should line up pretty easily and you'll just tighten them up. And like I mentioned, it's pretty much the same thing on the other side, but we'll show you doing the other side as well. We're going to do it a bit quicker here. We pull out those 2 screws. Again, another shot of showing how we just loosen this up. We pry it back a little bit, and then you should be able to just squeeze and pull this sensor plug-in off. And this is the one where that clamp was a bit harder to get to than it needed to be. So I had to get in there with a short socket, but I turned it right away so it would be easier to put back together. So I spun it up a little bit so that way I could just get a screwdriver on it when I go to reinstall it. So once you have all that out of the way, you should be able to lift up and you could kind of hear this one pull out of place. This one gives you a little better feel for how much force you actually need to kind of pull these out of place. And here we go again, 6 of those screws. We're just going to get all those screws out of the way and split open our airbox, clean it out a little bit if there's any big debris in there. Hopefully there's no dog food in yours. And then we're going to put this K&N air filter in place. Look for those tabs on the top again. Get those lined up. And then get all 6 of those screws started. And once you've had them all started, then you should be able to tighten them all up. Easy peasy. And of course, we're just going to reinstall this airbox. I'm pointing to those protruding parts again, and then you can see where they need to push in. So you should be able to also put that other hose back on and then push this down in place. And just be patient. It may take you a little bit of time. Don't give it too much force if it doesn't feel like it's going in right. Get a little better view in there if you can. Try to see the best you can to line it up before you really push it down in place. But once you do, it shouldn't come free super easily. So I gave it a little extra pull here to make sure it wasn't just going to come right off and that it was pushed in like I wanted it to be. And those 2 bolts towards the front side of the car, we're going to put those 2 bolts back in place and get those started. And of course, tighten up those bolts. And now we'll reconnect that sensor plug in. And after that sensor is plugged back in, again, we're going to give that clamp a little bit of a spin so it's easier to work with. And then we'll just tighten up that hose clamp. And there you go. You have successfully changed the air filters in your Aston Martin Vantage. Double check, make sure you didn't leave any tools under your hood, anything like that, but you should be able to just close your hood and be done. So there it is. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you could help me out a little bit too, if you leave a comment, let me know if the same procedure worked for you with maybe a different year of this car or maybe a different model entirely. I think it could be good to know from other people in the comments whether or not the same procedure kind of worked for them. But also, I'm just a guy on YouTube that likes to document what he does. So if I did anything wrong, please let me know that as well. Maybe you know a better way of doing something. Leave a comment section down below. Check the video description if there are any big updates for things I might have done wrong. And of course, as always, do anything you've seen in this video at your own risk. And of course, just a simple thumbs up or like or subscribe always helps out the channel. But that's all I got for this video, guys. As always, this is Paul from Boosted Films saying thanks so much for watching.